I'm glad to hear it. Okay, so very glad to hear it, actually, and I've done my job, not really. Right, so with regards to feeding back now, what we'd really like people to think about is what you've been speaking about, but then also to think about it in terms of the think, get, keep model.
We chose your case study of Carl and went through think, get, keep model mainly, recognising the barriers to start off with, visualising some positive things, and also he actually had a lot of positives in the fact that he'd been able to go to China, buy those things, get them back. So thinking about the positives that he had achieved was there's a lot to work with there. Yep. The getting, you realised what was needed was the maths and English, and that's what was the barrier to work, and also having the structure of perhaps learning something, because spending the day looking at four walls, having something else to do was something else to focus on for him as well. The keeping was ongoing support, revisit the goals, but always advising that there's the opportunity to go back to thinking all the time. You haven't failed, just to keep going back to that. So changing that pattern just to try and encourage the thinking to get back into the getting and the finally the keeping. Just to visualise the positive things. And we found that picture that Brenda had used quite useful as well, thinking about the journey and explaining everybody's going up and down at the same point as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, lovely, thank you.
In our group, we thought about the think, get, keep model as a sort of continuum, which sort of reduced the intervention. We felt that it was almost like percentages, that in the thinking stage it was sort of 70% intervention by an IAG person. These are just roughly figures here. I'm not doing it precisely. And then the getting was starting to empower the person. So the intervention was reducing a little bit, and then the keep was really that empowerment was getting to more of a stage where it was more like 70% the advisor and 30% the Carl. So that's the way we saw it, as a sort of, and then you could start again at any stage or join in at any stage. But that was the way we saw it. And we also thought about sort of from visualization. We thought about giving him some experiential confidence, if you like. So by actually bringing the literacy and numeracy tutor to him, so that he could meet him and tell him what a literacy and numeracy session would be like. Because if you've never been to one and just had bad experiences, do I have to pay for my coffee? Do I have to put my hand up to go to the toilet? It's all very well saying join this literacy class, but he might walk in and there was 6 women in their 60s and he might be, say 38, and you'll think, oh my God, you didn't tell me it would be like this. Yeah. So he can have a little peep in and start to build his confidence so that he, to make it a more sustainable model, really, so he knows a little bit more about what he's going into and he's supported on that journey.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, I think you've just been brilliant, and I think you've kind of summed it up, really. It's about that word empowerment, and you use, and it's about getting into learning, and it's about using practical techniques that help people do that. So thank you. That's been great.
Actually, I got slightly caught up in my own thoughts because I had a learner who I did IAG with last year, and I was thinking about what Anna said, which was that the person came back. I think I've seen that person twice, and they were definitely in the thinking stage, but they wanted to get to the get stage, but they're not doing. And I think if I'd have employed a solution-focused approach and found the exception that Brenda was talking about, we might have got him, because he'd been a lorry driver for many years and then was unable to do it, and he'd fallen into substance use and things. But there was we just came. What was in the room was shame. That he was thinking about his shame and he was experiencing it. And if I'd have been able at that point, I think, to think, aha, so now we will use this solution-focused approach and find the exception to that feeling, because it was pretty overwhelming. We might have got him to get to the course. So I'll go back and give that another go. So it's interesting how when you hear about people like Carl, it takes you back to other people. But the German word is Schwellenangst, and German has lots of great words for existential states, which I'm quite fond of, and Schwellenangst is literally the anxiety of coming over a threshold, and by extrapolation, the fear of starting something new. And we certainly know the more detail, the more you can paint that picture of what it will be like, be at peak in the classroom, meet the tutor, speak to another learner, how much our coffee is, where's the water machine. It's almost like the trail of breadcrumbs, without wanting to be the witch in Hansel and Gretel's forest. But, it's breaking it down into those tiny little steps. And because when you do that, people can say, oh, yeah, actually, I was a little bit worried about that. Actually, I was a little bit worried about that. Actually, I was... And the more you can make it live for them, that concept, the more I think the more you will get people coming and staying. And I did have the other part of the article was somebody didn't get the IAG, they turned up, they saw the room, the empty chairs, they burst into tears. I did catch them and have a word with them and have a chat, but it was too late, we lost them.
Yeah.
So.
I would just want to add to that, there's another word, it's actually a Japanese word called Kaizen, that you might have heard of, and we've mentioned it already today, and it's something that I've used a lot in coaching and helping people move forward, which is very much in the sort of IAG model that we've been talking about today, as far as I can see it. But it means continual improvement through small steps. And where the Japanese originally used it for strategies to war, it also now is a way of improving in business for companies, but for individuals, just that focus on action steps, action points, small goals that take you to your final goal, because your final goal is going to change as you develop and as you change. So keeping people on that path of small steps, small goals, and then they'll eventually get to a place of change.
Yeah, we talked about a number of different things, but in my IAG, I'm just thinking about what the importance is of from what people have fed back. I thought doing an action plan sometimes is a difficult thing when you're listening to people, but at the same time, the number of people that say at the end of the session, thank you so much for doing an action plan. And they're so pleased to go away with something that they've worked on with you.
Yeah.
So it's very important not to tell people what to do, but I always say to people, I've known you for an hour. You've known yourself for your whole life. I'm not in a position to tell you what to do. But we work on it together and come up with action plans. So I think that's something that's been really important in my work. And I have done some solution-focused training. It was good to look back at that today and just reacquaint myself with it, I think. Yeah.
Our group's already spoken, and it's not another international word. But it's going back to Brenda's process of transition, the curve. And we were looking at where people have destructive behaviours. And actually we thought it'd be a good tool for them to look at, so they could identify perhaps where they are falling off themselves and what fears or whatever it is that's causing them to fall off that, and be able to identify with that, because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we came up, we kind of made us think of the saying, if you've always done what if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
One of the biggest, perhaps I want to say, I'm going to call it a concern for us, was the possible amount of time this might take per learner. Would we have the expertise to do it? But in thinking about the possible amount of time it might take, we talked about how some of these things could absolutely be done as a group. Draw me a picture of what a good day looks like. What do you have for your breakfast? Let's share that. You know, whether you could share good practice with each other, you know, your learners who were in the room with you. But we certainly had concerns about how long this might take per learner. And it's not to bring anything down, just a bit of a reality check, perhaps for us. We thought we might have to rethink what we do and how we do it.
So I was going to, I think you raised a very good point there about the time, because I think, and I was going to do this in the summing up, but in your pilots, in your projects, you have 3 hours per person. So this isn't about therapy, it is about empowerment, and it is about helping people get to where they want to in terms of their community learning and what they want to do, and progress onwards, and feeling empowered to do that, and being successful. Because as I said, what you need to know is that going forward, this is what you're going to have to do. And as Katina said, there needs to be some standardization so that when Ipsos or whoever it is does an evaluation, they are evaluating much the same sort of thing. So you have 3 hours, and it runs kind of, you use it flexibly alongside the kind of chunks of learning, okay? So that's what it's for. So it's flexible. You don't do 3 hours per person. It's 3 hours average. Okay, and it's about access into learning and progression.